which probably only comes after death. Not always.
And what about synchronicities? Do they play a role in this?
Well, if you subscribe to a world that is in which we are microcosms reflecting the macrocosm, if you think that our inner psychic life reflects the outer world and vice versa, and that they are connected together by psychic reality, by daimonic reality, by soul, then there is no problem. It wouldn't be a surprise that an image in your mind should, in some sense, manifest itself in the outside world, you know. And we do this all the time. We dream things, and then the next thing, it appears in the world, or some image of it appears in the world, you know. It's because we're all embedded within imaginative life. And so every researcher, for instance, knows that a researcher is a quester. They're questing after knowledge. And sometimes you think you'll never find what you need. And you go into a library and the book that you want falls to the floor in front of you, and sometimes opens at the right page. All researchers know. Or someone sends you a book out of the blue, or you find a book on the tube, you know, something like that. You know, everybody knows that these kinds of synchronicities are angelic visitations. It's because your quest is so strongly constellated within you that the world around you colludes with you. It colludes with you because we're not separate from the world. The world isn't outside us in some sense. It's as much inside as outside, and the two co-inhere, to use an old theological term, that we're nested in each other.
What a motherfucker! This entire process of writing this fucking book blows my mind. For a long time, I've talked about it before, but I'll say it again. I think I've been at this book since 2013, and right now it's 2024. I've been doing it for a long time, and I don't know why I'm doing it. It's not like I'm sitting here, I don't know. It's just, it feels like it's making me do this. It feels like I'm taking part in this, not I'm making this thing. And a lot of the videos in the past kind of showing you my mindset here. When we explore the imagination, we explore the accessing of some other realm, in which from that point we're pulling from it a story. I've showed you the idea of manifestation and unmanifestation, taking something that doesn't exist and bringing it to reality. The point from within and bringing it without. Talked about many aspects of that, but the reality of the situation is why? You can say all this shit, like that you're making something and you're doing this, but why are you doing it? And many years I would sit down and ask myself that. Why are we doing this? And every time I'd have a different answer. Just like this is a different kitty. This is a different kitty. I would ask myself why I'm doing this. And every time it'd be a totally different answer, depending on the mood I'm in. And for so long, I never felt like I was the one in control of the situation. It was more like it was controlling me. And then I hear things like this that I'm thinking, it echoes that small little thing that I feel myself, and that is, I am tasked to do this goddamn thing by some fucking person, and I don't really know why that is. Not quite sure what that even means for myself. And it's so difficult to kind of tread through that all the time because you just kind of feel like lost. And I didn't really have a ground of reality to say, like, you know, this is the point we're trying to make here. This is the thing we're conveying. And so all the time I would try to tell myself, like, no, we're writing this book because we're trying to do this. No, we're writing this book because we're trying to do that, you know. And I try to come up with reasons, and every time I did, it seemed to say, yep, sure, but not really. And then it would go somewhere else, and I would just kind of feel lost in this. But the idea that there is this controlling factor that is behind the motivation of this, but I'm not necessarily in the know of it myself, definitely resonates deeply with me. You know, accessing some other point in I don't know, I guess we can just call it another realm, is quite difficult to do this all the time. And in doing it all the time, it's almost like the sense of reality is, I wouldn't say cut off, but it's like, it hinders your ability to make like decisions in the real world based upon the ones that you keep doing in this fucking fake world. And so that's this balancing act of like, how can we make all this stuff work together? How can things work in tandem with each other? I have no fucking idea. I really don't know. And a lot of the times I would just feel so lost with it. And the more I listen back, so over the years I've recorded conversations of me talking about the book, either by myself or with Jacob or Kevin. And when I would go back and listen to them, and I would hear certain things, I'd realized what I'm accomplishing here is I have a sense of something that I'm trying to make. I'm trying to make a doorway into another place. But when I go to another person, for instance, Jacob and Kevin, it's the sense of their own reality that they have, people that I consider intellectuals, they have a sense of what they think reality is, and they're trying to put it inside this place, and I'm just holding the door open or interpreting what they're trying to say and maybe throwing a little bit of my own spice in there. I feel like that's actually what's really going on here, if that makes sense. So I drew a door and I can open it, and there's some shit beyond it and I don't know. And I go in there myself and I come to those guys and say, hey, here's what I think I might see. And what they're doing is they're trying to put a base of reality to it. Like, okay, well, maybe this is going on. Maybe that's going on. Maybe these set of things are happening. And I think, okay, I don't know. So I'll explore their ideas in this other place and come out of it. And after I come out of it, I just say, well, yeah, there's things that I'll just throw that in there. But I'm going to kind of change a little bit of it. And there we go. That's what I think it is. It's a sense of finding the purpose on this place. So you go to this other world, this other realm or whatever, and to create, like, you see all these moving things. You see these objects, you see these places, these people, the story, the unraveling of a consciousness. And you yourself can't truly find the words to say, like, here's what I'm seeing. So you just go to other people and they themselves use the tools that they've had in this real world and try to help you navigate through it. So it's almost like I look at Kevin and Jacob as like the compass. The people that keep me grounded in reality as I tread through this. You know, they help me establish the pillars that need to always stay. Like, this always needs to be this, that needs to be that, this needs to be this. We have to create a sense of time here. So when I go in there, the jarring effect isn't so much. Because anytime I go and write in the book, if I'm not thinking that way, I could get lost, and then all of a sudden a whole new thing could happen. Because I walked away from these tracks that we tried laying, and I went off, and I found new things, and then I have to always look back. And I've done this so many times, where when I'm looking back at the tracks, the things that I just did actually don't make sense with that. So the story has to change. A plot has to change. Character motivation has to change. Even like, this guy was the big bad guy 2 years ago. Now he's actually a good guy. So things of that nature, it's always hard to keep straight all of these different aspects of it. And I hear things about this treading into this other place and trying to find some sense of synchronicity, some sense of similarity. And to me, that's the similarity. It's you're just taking in there whatever sense you have of this reality into this other, which sometimes can help, sometimes makes sense, but sometimes it doesn't make any because there is no base there. And this other place, as we're going to use kind of with this man, his Patrick Harpur, his analogies or whatever, the imagination. We're going to just kind of think of it that way right now. This other realm, this imagination where things can be manifested that never existed in the first place. It's going into that sensation and trying to pull from it. It's like a well. Because if you think about what imagination might entail, it's just this unending amount of creativity in a sense. Well, how could that be? How could rigidity be inside of something like that? How could some sense of normality or some sense of rigidness ever exist in truly creative environment. It can't. It's like a toolbox. If anything, there's a lot of things that can do stuff in there, but there's no true purpose. When you get a screwdriver out of the toolbox, it's like that has a purpose. But when it's sitting with a bunch of other tools, it's not doing anything. It's just sitting there waiting to be used. My terminology would say the realm of the imagination, I consider the realm of God, the mind of God. If this is the mind of God, then that would be God's toolbox. So that's God's toolbox. When we go in there, we open it up, we see all these fucking tools in front of us, and I pull this thing out, and I'm like, well, I have a screwdriver. I could use this to fix this thing over here that I have, but I can't use this to build, well, necessarily by itself, a house. You need a bunch of other kind of tools. That's the whole point of it. In my idea, inside this other realm, it's like God's toolbox is like, and it's their tools, but also I think they're emotions. I think emotions are the thing that helps you grip onto the tool. Emotion, which would be a spiritual element, something that comes from another. I think that's kind of how it works, because it seems to be that emotions are very, they can seem to be, I'll just say that, they seem to be of their own volition. They seem to take on their own life. They take you over, and they make you act in ways that the normal calm version of you would not do. A bout of rage, all of a sudden you just realize you punched a hole in your fucking wall, and you're like, why did I do that? I didn't want to fucking do that. Or in traffic, you get in a fucking fist fight with someone at a stoplight, some crazy shit. I've never had this experience. I just trying to use fucked up examples. Or like incredible sadness that's invoked by a song. It's a trigger of a memory, but at the same time, it's an emotion that takes you over and makes you act in a way that's not what you think is normal. That's the sense that we're trying to explore in there. And for me, I think that's what imagination is. So going into that point, I've gotten lost a bunch of times, which is echoed through the story of the Forgotten King being lost in the realm of creation. So for me, how I found a base in reality so I could go there and come back and like be a fucking at least a serviceable human being, I have to rely on other people to give me some sort of pillars of like, this is what the story's limitations are. We cannot break or bend these things. These are the things that will always be. That gives me a sense of comfort. So when Kevin tells me, this is the border of Tantorum, this is what they're doing in this time, this is what has happened in that country, and this is the outlook of certain people and who exist in there, it gives me like, okay, that's there. Or when Jacob tells me the lore of the South, I just know like, that's fucking there. Okay, so that exists. I can't undo that and say like, yep, the South never really existed. That was in the imagination of the Forgotten King this whole time. I can't do that because it already exists. So it gives me a sensation of like something to keep the story from breaking itself. Because truly going into the imagination unabound with no limitation, I think you can break whatever you're trying to make. It's like in music, and you keep adding and adding and adding to a song, you can actually break the song and make it unserviceable to whatever the purpose of the song was supposed to be. That's the sense of reality that treading inside of this imaginary world, finding through like what they're considering here the synchronicity, finding the sense of how we can move into this place and create a sense of whatever the fuck we're trying to pull out. In my case, it's a story. Now, I wonder myself if this imaginary place that can exist is a pool that we all can see together. So let's say that this imagination, this realm exists. Can we all look at it? It's the same place, or is it kind of like each individual person has their own version of the string that leads us to our own separate imagination? I don't think so. The second one doesn't seem to make sense because we're all accessing the same point. Maybe we do have our own astral strings or whatever that lead us to the source. Because that's the biggest fucking thing that I've always kind of met with is the source. Like God, I guess would be the example. God. We interpret God as this unimaginable, unfathomable unfallible. I don't know if that's a word. He can't do no wrong. Things of that, we subscribe him to be this perfection. Perfection is met in the face of the unknown. The unknown is the vastness of what we cannot understand or comprehend. If that would indeed be it, then I could see how that would be connected to what we would consider heaven. And the accessing to that, we rely on some sort of human way to enter it. And the most human way we know to enter this other place is through death. But it can be accessed through meditation. That's when you hear the voice of God. I think that there's something there that's connected to the imagination. I think the imagination in the realm of heaven might be the same place indeed, just looked at differently. It's a different angle. I'm standing over here, this is what I'm seeing, but that guy stands on that side of it. He's like, well, no, I see this. I see imagination, he sees heaven. This could be the way we connect to source. And maybe God himself is just a sensation. Maybe it's an emotion that we can all tap into. He's not necessarily a creator, but a created that is a feeling. Because I remember hearing at one point that this man here was talking about how everyone has their own, like the Greeks believed, Platonic. I don't remember Plotinus. I'm sorry, I don't know. But he described as ancient Greek that everyone has their own kind of demonic spirit that is kind of the intermediary between them and the creator, God, which would have been like Zeus for them or whatever. It's like this Christianized word would be a guardian angel. This person, this thing, this entity that is your personal guide. And I think they're the ones that can guide you through this stuff. If they're the ones guiding you to this source, if they're this mediator, if they're this like vehicle to allow you through, in a sense, it sounds to me that if we connect that to source, source may not necessarily be God himself. Source could be what we inter as God because of the unfathomableness. So in my book, The Forgotten King, stuck in the realm of creation due to some circumstances that happened in the book. Watch other videos, you'll hear how it happened. What happens when he's in that place is it slowly drives him mad. Because of many different reasons, but the main reason, if you're to boil it down, to simplify it, to give him an antidote and say this is what this problem is he's in a place that cannot be comprehended by any being, no matter how high or low. Now, the Forgotten King, Oapake, is an aeon. In the world of the book, that's a god. That's like hearing that, like, Apollo, though he's not a creator himself, but he's among the gods, is like stuck in a fucking the realm of God, and it's driving him mad. And you're like, well, how? He's like a higher being. They don't mean shit. This source that this higher being stuck in, go back to Oapake, the Forgotten King, that source is not necessarily a being. The best I've ever described it was a sense of the room in which God works or has worked. Like maybe that right there is the abandoned, let's just use some terminology we can understand, the abandoned factory in which he once worked, the office in which he sat and made all this happen, and now he's gone from it. And you go into that office where many crazy things were born and created, and it's like, I don't know, he's not here anymore. What happened? Well, he's gone doing other things. That could be indeed what source is. It could just be some sense of what was once left behind, the stains of memory. Because in that point, he left behind, it'd be like me walking away from this office right now. And you walk into this office, there's enough tools here for you to make things. You're like, okay, there's books, there's a typewriter here, there's a computer, and there's a filing. I can kind of make a world with all this stuff. I'll just pick up where all this is left off. And you can create your own sense of what this world is. But you're not a god, are you? Was the one before you the same thing? Was he the same person? Just like, yeah, I just walked in this room and I made some things and I don't know. And now these beings think I'm a god. That right there is the story of the Titans. They walked into a realm that they created a bunch of things and all of a sudden now they're gods, but they're no better than anyone else. They're just higher. That feeling of the story coming from, in my word, like the theological philosophy of how we got here, for me, that's the synchronicity. That's finding the reality from without and within. If I'm seeing the world in this way, you'll see it echoed when it comes to the story of the Titans, the story of Forgotten King, the story of the Yanaku or the Aeons, or you're going to see it echoed because it's like, I try to tread into this other place. I found things, I pulled it out, I showed the two guys, I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is. They helped me piece it together, and I applied the glue, and then we have a sense there, so when I go back in, I use that as the roadmap. And that's how you can stay within the synchronicities of the story. I mean, if you ask Jacob or Kevin how many times there's weird moments of like, an idea that I had 5 years ago perfectly fits with this new thing Kevin's just saying out of nowhere. Or vice versa. Kevin created something a long time ago and now it fits. And I didn't even know he had that. We didn't know that. Or the time is like reminding us, hey, it's 6:22 while you're doing this. For us, that 22 is a very significant time. It's the most important time, I think. The number 22 for numerology for us. Or any other thing. You know, it puzzle pieces together. This story has had too many times where something was missing and all of a sudden just, here you go. You already have the piece. It's right there. As he described it, the book falling from the shelf and opening to the right page. That has happened in this book so many times that that realization came to me and I realized this story, the opening of the door, allowed me into this other sensation to which let me pass into another world to which now I'm pulling from it all the things I might need to bring back here. Which goes back to the original question, why am I doing this? And right now I still don't fucking know. I don't know why I'm doing this. I have no clue. But it does feel necessary. Whether that's my own foolish pride or my own like stupidity, thinking that I'm important enough where this matters, it could be that. Or it could be higher than I could ever comprehend. I don't know why I'm doing this. But the story is driving me to create a sense of philosophy that which others can look to, cling to, shape and change to their own will so that we can use it as a guiding force going forward. To me, that's what a myth is. That's what any ancient story is. A story that's passed down generation to generation. It's not just because it's a good fucking story. It's because there's something stuck or locked or placed inside of that that we all can access. And that thing goes to the source, what we term as God. I think that might be what's going on here. But I don't know. I can only speculate. But anyway, we should get back, we should do some writing today and see maybe what we can uncover with all this swirling in our minds. So, until next time.